Hello guys, welcome back into another video here on the Banjo Addict page. Thank you so much for pushing that play button. This week I want to give you all more techniques to try to learn chord. Now this came about because I have several people in the comments on videos and forums that I'm on about learning chords, and apparently learning chords is a tough subject. It's one of those touchy subjects that people get frustrated with, and being the last video I done was about being frustrated. I didn't really go over how to fret chords. I've done another video about how to make chords easy, and I'll put the link right up here if you want to watch that video as well. But in this video I want to go more in depth on some of the chords, more or less how to get to the point of fretting a chord, because once you learn the chord and then hitting it every time is two different things. You got to learn the chord before you can worry about how fast you get it on the fretboard. Alright guys, so let's start with the C chord. Now of course you know the C chord is your ring finger on the first string second fret, your first finger on the second string first fret, or your index finger on the second string first fret, and then your middle finger over here on the fourth string. Of course, everybody knows that's a C, but putting that all down at one time like that is difficult. So something you can try is a partial C at first. Make yourself a partial C, which are these two fingers, your ring finger on the first string second fret, second string first fret on your index finger, and just work on that, picking it up and putting it down, which is a partial C, and work on like barely pulling it off the strings and pushing it back down. And you'd be amazed if you sit and just do that right there, just barely pull it off. If you just do that right there and just sit and, I mean, once you kind of get used to doing that, just barely pull it off the strings and push it back down, and just sit and do it. And don't even really pay attention to it, because your fingers never really leave the string. It's just you're just taking pressure off and putting it back down at first. Then just sit and do it. And the more you do it, the more you'll be able to bounce your fingers up off of it and get further and further away. And then before you know it, you're out here doing this. And I don't know why I throw my back like there. My teacher used to tell me that if you could take your hand off of here and slap your hand and put it back up, you know, to do that. If you ever get to that, if you get to that point, then you can try that. But mainly get that partial C down. Okay, now once you get to the point to where that partial C's down and your fingers kind of know where to go, well then put the partial C down and then put your middle finger down out here. Now I know in the end result, this is not how we want to do it. We don't want to put that down and then put this down, okay? You want all these to come down all at one time once you get going. But all we're trying to do is train our fingers to go to the strings that we want them to go to. That's all we're working on right now. Later on, we'll work on getting them all down at once. But right now, let's just work on getting our fingers down. So you got this, your partial C, and just boop, 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 and then, I mean, this may take you a day or two, kind of going through it like this until you can get to where you can bounce it pretty good, and you know, you can hit on that every time, and then get down and boom, okay? And then once you get that pretty good, that finger's hitting that every time, then try to put them all down at once. And even when you get to this position, you may want to start over again and just barely pull them off the strings, and just kind of get used to that, and then bounce them, bounce them, bounce them. Then finally you'll get to the point where you can do these numbers here and get them, you know, and it's becomes automatic then at that point in time. But all we're trying to do is put muscle memory in our fingers. That's all we're trying to do. And so there's several different ways you can go about that. Now that's one way to do it. You can also put an E minor down, which is your ring finger on the first string, or first string second fret, and your middle finger down on the fourth string second fret. That's E minor. And do the same thing with that. Just barely, 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 and then work it till you can hit that E minor every time. And then once you can hit that E minor every time, then drop your index finger in on the second string first fret up here. And then once you get both of them two together, once you can do this, and then you can do this, that's the C chord more or less. You're putting these two fingers down and these two fingers down, and then you just put it all together into a C chord. Now I know I'm making this sound easy because I'm doing it in 5 seconds, and it's going to take days to do this. But I promise you, if you'll do these techniques and just barely off the strings and then the more you do it and not pay attention to your fingers, then you'll start bouncing, and you'll bounce and get higher and higher and higher and higher, and then you'll get to that point where you can hit it every time. Same thing with this again, boom, 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 and then that'll give you your C shape. And again, all you're trying to do, and it's awkward starting out, and I remember starting out how awkward, because your fingers don't want to make these shapes. But once you get them to make these shapes, you can't stop them. But that's on the C chord. That's what I would do there. And it's the same thing, we'll say on the D chord. You come down here to the D chord, and it's the same thing. And the way I've always learned the D chord is this partial D shape. And there's songs that I'm learning now, a lot of songs that I'm learning now in the clawhammer style that use this partial D shape here on the 3rd string 2nd fret and the 2nd string 3rd fret. And I'm using these 2 fingers here on those, which is kind of odd because, I mean, that makes a D shape right here. But in order to do the full D shape, you've got to rearrange your fingers. It's got to be these 3 fingers and then put that finger down. But on the D, it's the same thing. If you put these 3 fingers down right here, working this pinky finger here. The D chord isn't all that bad, or for me it wasn't, let me say, because I always played with this partial D. For the longest time, I always played for this partial D. It wasn't until 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years into me playing banjo that I really started trying to put this other finger down and get used to that full D shape. But most of the stuff you're going to be doing with a D is going to be a partial D, just like this, or a D7, which up here is a D7. But the partial D down here is these 3 fingers, and then you can lay this finger in up top. And the main reason I started, when I started learning backup or jam sessions, we're doing a rolling backup or whatever, that's where I really started getting into the full D chords on playing. But mostly you're going to be on a partial D chord, but don't get behind on that and think that I ain't got to make this full D chord ever, because you will. So get your partial D chord down and then lay in your ring finger on this upper string up here. And on this one, I mean, mainly it's just the same thing. You just gotta work on this one. The D chord for me was second hardest. The first hardest one I had is this F chord, and I had a hell of a time with it for a long time because I had to put one finger down and then lay the rest in, or put this finger down and lay the rest in. And it was hard for me. It was very hard. But me saying that is the best way that I can tell you to learn how to play it is work on putting these 2 fingers down, like you was over here at the E with up with the C with the E minor. You want to try to get this down right here, okay? And then once you get that down, then you can work on this. Get this down. Put them all down at the same time. All down at the same time. And then finally add in your index finger up here on the 2nd string 1st fret, and just kind of lay them in there. You can anchor a point right here, but if you start working on anchoring a point with the F chord as you're trying to learn it, anchor it both ways. Anchor it with your pinky first, or anchor it with your index finger, and then lay the rest of them in. Don't get comfortable laying them in one way or the other. But the way I learned it is I recommend putting these 2 fingers down, your pinky finger and your ring finger, on the 3rd fret, 1st and 4th string, and then laying your middle finger down up here on the 3rd string, 2nd fret, and then lay your 1st finger in. But if you get the shape down right here with these 3 fingers on it, and you can do that every time, and then lay this finger in, and again, don't get real used to laying them and then that. but it'll kind of help you get started on the string, and then after a while you'll just be able to lay it in there. But guys, the C chord is, as far as learning it, gives you a lot more opportunities to train your fingers as far as the shape, because you can go to the E minor or you can go to the partial C, and both of them train your fingers to do the C chord. And so you can train it both ways. And the same way with your F, you just got to kind of trick your mind into thinking, okay, I'm gonna put these down, boom, and then my index, you know. After a while, once you get used to your fingers, once you get your fingers in muscle memory as far as putting them down, you want to be trying to put them all down at once. As soon as you get to the point where your fingers will go down there, but anyways, you want to try to get them all down at one point in time. You want to be able to move to there and have that fretted. So, all right, guys, I just hope this video helps. I'm gonna try to put this video out midweek, and then have another video on Saturdays for you guys, and I hope this helped. Thank you so much. If you've enjoyed the content, please consider smashing that like button, guys, because it helps out tremendously. That being said, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.